Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first of our accounting industry focus webinars. I'm delighted to be joined this morning in the offices of Cevitr. So let's get started. So let's get the introductions out of the way first. I'm Richard Higginbotham. So I'm Products and Professional Services Director here at VaultConnect. Joining me this morning, I have Alan Hyams. Alan.
Good morning. I'm a business performance coach working mainly with professional service firms to improve their productivity.
Okay, thanks, Alan. And actually our host this morning. Good morning, Ramesh.
Hi, Richard. So Ramesh Menon, I'm one of the co-founders of Cevitr. We'll talk about it a bit in detail later, but just to give you some excitement, we offer digital workmates that you can add to your teams.
Okay, thank you, Ramesh. I'm looking forward to that bit. So just a little bit on how the format will run this morning. We've booked 45 minutes for the session. Our usual format is we'll present for about 30 minutes and leave ourselves with some time at the end for questions and answers. If you want to raise a question at any time, use the question and answer button. We see it pop up here. Sometimes we'll answer it if it's a good point in the flow of the presentation, but we'll address all questions at the end. In the very unlikely event that you ask a question that we're not able to answer between us off the cuff, we will come back with a full response and we'll acknowledge that question. So a recording of the webinar will also be available for everybody on demand after the event. So without further ado, let's get going. So there's a gap between performance and potential. So Alan, I'm guessing this is what you spend an awful lot of your time with professional services firms trying to address. What do you usually find?
Well, the first thing I find is that there aren't enough hours in the day. Everybody's busy.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, are they busy doing the right things? And to grow, they need to have a proposition which attracts new business.
Mm-hmm.
And the appropriate kind of new business.
Yep. And so we talk about growth. What does growth mean to a professional services firm? Is to a lot of firms, if they're after more clients, that means growth, but growth can mean different things to different people.
Absolutely. I think probably we're talking about increasing the bottom line. Mm. And to do that, you have to increase your top line. So new business is key to this, but also equally important is cross-selling and upselling.
Yeah.
Are we reaching the maximum potential of our existing base?
Mm-hmm. So there's some challenges in achieving this. And one of these is productivity, something that you and I have talked an awful lot about, Alan, yeah. is the productivity gap. So we know that productivity is important. I throw up a famous economist's quote in here is, it's not everything, but it's almost everything. What's the impact on productivity within a professional services firm and specifically in accounting?
Well, I did a survey a couple of years ago of 20 professional service firms in the Northwest, mm-hmm. 10 accountants and 10 lawyers, all doing different kinds of work. Shapes and sizes, from the smallest was a 10 people business, the largest was a 200 people business, and everything in between. The result of that productivity audit was that there is lost profitability opportunity of £10,000 per fee earner.
So that's per billable employee, they're
Correct.
Missing out on £10,000 profit to the bottom line.
Correct.
Where does this missed profit result from?
It results from the inefficiency of the process that the firm has, because it's run by humans, mm-hmm. and humans make lots of mistakes, get distracted, need a break, go and have a chat.
Yep. So what we have is we have a business model that is geared towards getting billable hours or a billable time, billable tasks from its employees, but they're tied down doing stuff other than billable hours, or actually a billable hour is taking more than an hour?
Well, that's a very important point. We budget, or hopefully the business budgets for the work for a particular client, but do they stick to it? What do they do if they don't stick to it? And it's all about avoiding what I call the triple discount.
Yep.
Which is, you get a piece of work in, you have a look and you think, it's not worth that. I've got to do it a bit cheaper. Then when you raise the bill, it's, can't bill them that. And then the client complains, so you knock something off again. So you've got to avoid the triple discount.
So I imagine that there's a lot of common features to a firm that is experiencing a productivity gap. So what does this look like? You mentioned the triple discounting.
Well, you've got some examples there where typically we do too much work on an assignment. And the way I sum that up is giving a Rolls-Royce service for the price of a Mini.
Yeah.
You can only lose money doing that. You might have happy clients, but you won't have happy directors or partners.
Yeah.
A big part of this is putting things right that have gone wrong. Because usually the people who have to put it right are senior team members.
Yep.
We've got under delegation because people want to look busy because they're important then and they'll stay with the firm and have a future. Technology. Are we using it properly? A lot of places I go, people tell me that the system that they have to work with just doesn't support the way they want to work.
Yep.
Quality assurance, sometimes people spend too much time on that, too many levels of check. Waiting, I love waiting, because however efficient you are, you still wait for stuff from the client, from the bank, from the solicitor, and that slows you up. And every time you pick up a file or put it down, it costs money.
Yeah. And clients are important because that's where the money comes from, but they're also a major distraction if not managed correctly, aren't they?
Absolutely. And they get in your way. And it'd be a great business if it wasn't for the clients. So going back to the list, you've got support of work in progress and debtors. Are you collecting quickly enough? Soft skill training. Are we actually training our people to communicate effectively with the outside world? Be ambassadors for the business, for the firm.
And I guess that's also making those, is where soft skills are in short supply, is chargeable staff are also your probably most capable staff within there. So they're the ones who go out and see clients.
Absolutely.
Which then adds additional time pressure to their billable hours.
Correct. And finally, training. Whatever systems we've got and software we've got, there's usually somebody in the office who's a whiz. Why don't we let them teach the others the shortcuts that they've learned?
Yes. So all of that stuff that they're deploying to make is actually not working for them. Now, there's a big opportunity within the accounting business model, and it's down to what clients entrust firms with. I guess for most firms, I know the way I work is I have 2 or 3 tasks that need doing every year, and that's when I think of my accounting firm. And unless I have a problem with it, I'm not going anywhere else.
That's right. There's a huge stickability, and it's important to have that repeat business, and that is where accounting as a business is much better than law.
I've also got a ton of information in mine,
especially with cloud and online bookkeeping. We've got a lot more data than we've ever had access to before. But are we doing anything with it other than preparing VAT returns?
Okay. So I guess that information is, if all that's coming back to me as is your accounts were filed, your your VAT return was filed and this is the amount that needs to be paid. There's some value to me as a client of that accounting firm in knowing that that's taken place, but it's not driving my business forward. So that there's something that can happen with that data and that information, isn't there?
Absolutely. And it's using it to advise your client about all sorts of stuff, and not just the numbers, the business fundamentals. Most practitioners have been around long enough to see lots of different businesses, lots of ways of handling things, and cross-fertilizing those ideas with your client base is a good place to start. But there's lots more, and we'll speak about that at one of the future webinars.
Yeah. So this is a simple business model. If I have lots more clients, I will get more opportunity for advisory work, and I can grow through there.
Correct.
Is there any disadvantage to me generating lots of clients for VAT return work and payroll work? And
well, you have to be careful not to put more through an incapable system.
Right.
So first, my advice would be to put your system right, and then start to pump the volume through.
Yeah. So if I've got a business model that's already somewhat inefficient, I'm putting lots of what is in effect fixed fee work through that model. I'm compromising on margin. I'm losing that productivity per billable hour already. I've probably got a very finite capacity for how many clients that I can have. So does that just mean I'm busy being busy?
It could well mean you're being busy, and that's something to avoid.
And I mean, I don't know that you coined the term, but there's a term you've used with us in the past where you've talked to us about compliance lock.
Yes, that's a description for exactly what you've just said. Your team is overloaded. You're just about geared up to produce the annual accounts and get them filed on time and get VAT returns in on time, get payroll done on time. By the time you've done all of that, you had no more capacity to either serve new clients or help existing ones. And that can't be a sensible business model.
No.
Not going forwards into the future.
Okay, so I'm compromised on productivity, I'm compromised on capacity, I'm in compliance lock, I can only do the fixed fee work, I cannot take advantage. So it's productivity, it's data, it's information. This has got to be about technology to enable the winning of advisory work. So it's all about technology. But having been a long background in technology and working with enterprise technology, it's clear to me why software hasn't been able to solve this problem already. If I was to look into different marketplaces, or if I was to look at how customer relationship marketing or CRM software has developed, you get a big San Francisco, Silicon Valley giant like Salesforce developing something that will work for millions of users globally with variations per vertical where there's a common need. Same goes for enterprise resource planning software where that does. Is I guess what you have when I'm looking at a market for software is each locality is governed by its individual compliance framework, isn't it? So there is a finite market for practices who work the way a UK accounting firm would work.
Correct.
So we get, and investing in technology development is extremely costly. So for a provider of software to the UK accounting firm market, there is a finite return that they can get from there, which then has a knock-on effect for what's available to you. I guess there's also an element of, if you dial out complexity and some of the human elements of this, what you're doing is, in dumbing down, is you're bringing something down to lower level staff, people who are less engaged with the outcomes, and you can compromise on some of the quality for the delivery for the client. So I'm sat here with Ramesh at Cevitr, and I know that we have a background in common in addressing areas that software won't meet. So Ramesh, tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure, Richard. I think you alluded to a bit of it when you talked about the large Silicon Valley giants. Well, I spent a lot of my earlier part of my career with these large companies and enabling different sizes of organizations to adopt these technologies, which were typically large, significant programs aimed at streamlining processes across the board.
Okay. So within that background there's usually a set of steps that an organization goes through in going through this transformation, which starts off with a business case. Now, a business case has to add up, but there's a lot of work that goes into figuring out the different elements of the equation, isn't there? Typically, how long can it take for a business case to come together for an enterprise deployment?
Very interesting question, Richard. I think in many cases, a business case can go, as long as you want to do. It could be a few months to a few years in some cases. And it beats the whole purpose of the business case in itself.
Yeah. So again, we're talking about something that SMEs always struggle with, which is the luxury of time. You have to put the technology onto something. So you have to acquire servers, you have to acquire hardware.
Absolutely. And many a time, the whole business case is predicated by the investment that you have to do in technology. And, like you rightly said, the hardware, the software behind it, the amount of time it would take to deploy a program of this nature, using significant amount of consultancy experts, technical experts, and getting time out of people who are doing their day job in the business themselves. That is a significant investment. So, it could, for a small SME for a small to medium-sized business to be able to adopt a business case of this nature beats the whole purpose of, deploying something which will optimize their processes.
So we could see somebody making an investment case to spend 2x and achieve a benefit of X in their first year of doing this, which means that the time to realize the benefits on this case could be 2 years.
Absolutely. And that's where it beats the whole purpose of the business case itself. So if you're looking at a business case in terms of cost reduction or your higher productivity, and if you're taking a 2x investment upfront, then the whole point of that business case is lost.
So Alan, if we're talking about a regional accounting firm, is how many are sat with huge vaults full of cash that would be able to stand a technology investment that paid off sometime in 12 to 18 months' time?
Not enough of them.
Yeah, there is a real challenge there in going down the traditional technology approach. But Ramesh, your background with Tata Consulting in business process outsource, you did an awful lot of work with an emerging technology, which is actually, I think, emerging and people are starting to find out about. This has been around for a fair period of time, but robotic process automation. So you've been working with that for a good deal of time now.
Absolutely, Richard. In fact, the technology itself is probably more than, been there around for 10 years. But the adoption rates were lower, given the fact that compute capacity to adopt such technology was still lacking. Over the last few years, technology has evolved, so has compute capacity, and now organizations are able to make use of this, in a pretty good rate. But the whole point of your business case is still a problem there.
So somebody looking to go and deploy this from scratch is still going to have to go through all of this process. So as a founder of Cevitr, you had you and your co-founders, you had a vision in how this could be done that actually removes some of this barrier. So you talked to me about creating a digital workforce and a new delivery model.
Absolutely. So you hit the nail on the head about a digital workforce. So if today you as a business are looking to, get a higher capacity or throughput through your business, you would go out and, hire a workforce. You would hire people to come and help you do your business. Why can't it be the same with technology? Why can't it be the same where you can actually hire capacity where you need it to be able to get a higher throughput in your business?
Okay.
So that's the basis of offering a digital workmate to your businesses through our business model.
Okay. And you've assigned a personality to your digital workmate, I believe.
Yes, it is a gender neutral personality. So our digital workmates are called Joe.
Okay. So what can Joe do?
So Joe, think about Joe as a digital worker who can exactly replicate everything that a human worker can do on a computer, right? So be it, taking data from one system to the other, working with documents, with emails, filling up forms, anything that, you would classify as a swivel chair process.
Okay, so swivel chair process. So that's a bit like having to hit Alt Tab or Command Tab on the application to get between program A and program B to move information from one to the other.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So anything that's boring, that's repetitive, pretty much anything that makes a human be like a robot.
Right. Okay. I get that. So Joe replaces fingers on keyboards.
Spot on.
And when we first talked about this, you talked about training Joe. So that, I guess, so when I think of technology, I think of developers and coding. You talk about training. So there is a distinct difference in the approach there, isn't there?
Absolutely. So when we talk about training the Joe, we talk about getting the digital workmate to understand how your process is executed, just like how a person would do it, and mimicking those steps. So if a person opens an email, takes a certain data, inputs that into a system, goes into a workflow, we would train Joe to do exactly those sequence of steps. And it takes us hardly a few days to do that. So we could have a conversation today on one of your processes, and you could have Joe working on it the next week.
Okay. And despite the fact that we've given Joe a personality, Joe can work round the clock.
Yes.
Every day of the year?
Every day of the year, without a break. So the beauty of this technology is, if you're talking about repeatable, boring tasks, it's natural when a human does it. When a person does it, it's going to, boredom creeps in, and boredom brings in errors. But for somebody like Joe, Joe is going to keep chugging along with that task without taking a break, without causing those errors. So you're going to get a much higher speed and productivity with boring, repetitive tasks. And these are tasks that, people hate to do anyway.
Yep.
You wouldn't like to, process 500 invoices a day, would you, Richard?
No, not if I could help it. Not if I could help it. So what that means is that by changing the delivery model, we've removed the upfront cost of the business analysis, the business case, and actually the business case is done as part of the feasibility. You look at a process, you establish whether it can be automated using Joe, and whether it is viable commercially for both parties in doing that. So if it's deployed, everybody knows that there's immediate savings that could be achieved.
Absolutely. So think about it just like you would think about if you're going to hire a person to do a particular task, a repetitive task, you could either have a part-time worker with you, or you could have a full-time worker. Similarly, you could have a part-time Joe, or you could have a full-time Joe, depending on the complexity and the volume of effort for driving a process.
Okay. Naturally, it's automated. It's faster. Joe is faster than a human. But there's also a speed of change and ability to flex to change comes as taking a digital workmate or Joe approach rather than coding software.
Yeah, that's a great point actually, because when you look at automation in your business, a lot of time you focus on the direct benefits. The direct benefits are, yes, you can do things faster, you can do it quicker, probably you can save costs. But to what, your earlier conversation with Alan was, when you free up time from people doing boring activities, what you achieve with that freed up time is where the biggest benefit of automation comes in. And that's what we call as the outcome benefits. Let me give you an example. Today we, working with one of our customers where we are saving around 20-25% of time from their sales teams, manual data entry efforts. And this 25% of time from the sales team is spent on selling more to their end customers, which has resulted in a higher, revenue stream for them. So that's where the actual benefits of automation come in. What you do with the time that is freed up from the people that you try to free up.
So I guess going back, Alan, to our business model that we described earlier, if I boil it down to some very simplistic elements, it's a function of grey hair, grey matter, and fingers on keyboards in a lot of regional accounting.
Yes.
So the opportunity is there to free up some of the fingers on keyboards in order to get more from the experience, which I jokingly refer to as grey hair, and certainly the knowledge and the intelligence and technical skills that's tied up in the grey matter.
Absolutely right. There are two choices. One is to put more volume through of the compliance type work. The other is to trade up using that experience and get into the advice area.
Fantastic. So in summary, what we've gone through this morning is there is a productivity gap. A typical SME accounting firm could be experiencing £10,000 hit on the bottom line per billable employee.
Absolutely.
It can be bound up in putting more of the wrong type of work through an already inefficient business model and what we termed compliance lock. Creating capacity could unlock massive opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I've talked through a little bit about what the challenge for a software provider in addressing this absolutely is there isn't enough volume of users to make the cost worthwhile within there. But as we've just run through with Ramesh, new technology can change this, but in particular, new delivery methods of that technology, which allows you to employ it as a digital workmate, digital workforce, gives you the opportunity for flexibility.
Spot on, Richard.
So we've got two more events in this series now, and what we're going to do is we're going to move from the why is this the case to actually what can this lead to. So in our next event, which is the 10th of July, we're looking at rewriting the future of the SME accounting firm. So we'll go from looking at the challenges to actually how can somebody take the opportunities and what steps that will look like. On the 23rd of July, we'll go a step further. We'll start looking at actually if there's greater value in delivering advice, what is that advisory opportunity and how do we get from where we are today to where we might be in 2-3 years time in taking that opportunity. So we've got time for a couple of questions within here. The first question that popped up this morning is, I guess, if we're going through the 7 steps of acceptance, this shows that there is some acceptance in there. So the first step being acknowledging that there's a problem. But the question is how aware do you feel accounting firms are of process inefficiency? I guess Alan would be the...
I think they're acutely aware, but I don't think they know what they can do about it. I think they feel they've done everything they can, given the staff they've got the structure they've got, and the clients they've got.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of experience, Ramesh, dealing with very busy people. And there's a couple of conversations that we had early on when we were talking together were about people who are busy trying to get the job done don't have the time to innovate.
You're absolutely right, Richard. So it's a it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. Are you able to free up time in your day job to be able to think of new ways of doing things? And sometimes you're locked in that you're locked in that situation for a long time.
Yep. And we had another question specifically around the productivity gap. Was it a complex method of calculation, or were you able to use kind of readily available?
It was an approximation. We based it on the Toyota Set Waste approach to manufacturing, but I changed it in that I used words that were appropriate for professional services. I added some other ones I was aware of, and we changed it around. But the principles were the same as doing a waste audit.
Mm-hmm. And did you find a big range or a degree of convergence with them?
There's a fair range, I think. I quoted the £10,000 figure per fee earner as an average.
Mm-hmm.
I think the highest was close to 30,000.
Wow, that's a lot for a team of technical professionals. Yeah. Very good. Now I think we've exhausted the questions that we've got coming through on the thing this morning. By all means, please contact us. Our slide with the email addresses isn't here, so we'll quickly read those out. So if you'd like to contact me, my email address is richard@vaultconnect.co.uk. Ramesh?
It's ramesh@cevitr.com.
And mine's alan@mrwcs.com.
Okay, so if there's any questions that we've raised this morning that you would like us to address independently or together, then please get in touch. Thank you very much. I hope you can make our next sessions in July.
Thank you.